Oh, one of the things I'm gonna do. I don't know. Let's go to. I'm gonna go to. Ooh. Hope this is helpful. Anybody wants to stream? This is stuff that you have to do. Or if I'm doing it wrong, somebody will tell me. Man, get it together. So, I just thought when I'm getting ready to publish these guys, I had it set up where they automatically publish, but I guess it's better this way. But he was saying my stream is extremely laggy. And yeah, let's take a look. Is that the way we want to start the morning with humming and buzzing? Tell a certain kind of story, and the story gives you some sense of now. Right now we're kind of at the stage where my daughter is getting ready to have her own room. She's like turning 6 or something like that, and she's starting to get a lesson about life or something like that. Yeah, great. I mean, I was worried. He was saying it was lagging. Maybe it was his internet connection was lagging. Seemed to be going smooth, which is good. 5 deathmatch tickets. God. Really kind of cool, right? Good old Barry. Barry's really smart. He's doing video editing. He sells video editing services. Or he can if you get to know Barry. Shout out to Barry Beast. If you get to know him, he does good work with CapCut. And actually, you look at me here. I am a old guy or whatever. I stopped using Premiere. I'm using CapCut. Much easier, faster. Premiere is like a nightmare compared to CapCut, and it's like CapCut is free, but it's like you get more stuff, if you buy the pay version or whatever. Macarena's running like crap. That's all I need. Oh, and I'm like super. I didn't start up all my stuff. Oh, these guys are so awful. Oh, there you go. Hey, good. COVID testing over here. Line, tilt your head back. Only take a second. Coochie, 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 coochie. Hey, how you doing there, buddy? Coochie, 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 coochie. Coochie, 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 tick, 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 tick. You must die, die. Oh, he killed me. I was focusing in on him too much. And he was throwing off on fire. Man. I should have turned around and bopped somebody else upside the head. But we closing in the gap. Let's see. I gotta eat less today. It's my goal. I don't want to be too fat. Good. Freeze him right by the evil ray thing. Oh no. Oh, get away from me, you stupid. Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. Oh, no, 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 he's gonna tase me. Jerk. All my fault. Damn. No. My fault. Landmines everywhere? You guys suck. How come I don't have better bots? Dang landmines. Oh. Defeat. Humiliation. Okay, so it's time. Bort. Look at you with all your dang fancy gear and mother-loving side tipping equipment. All right, let's see. So much for that. Alright, so let's see what we got here. There's that. There's that. There's that.
Romeo, and please check contact with the fifth.
Odious to them should be removed from before their eyes. Some Muslim prisoners, who had only escaped the sword of the conquerors to fall into a horrible state of slavery, were ordered to bury the disfigured bodies of their friends and brothers. They wept, says Robert the Monk, 187, and transported the carcasses out of Jerusalem. They were assisted in this melancholy duty by the soldiers of Raymond, who, having entered last into the city, had not had a large share of the plunder, and sought to increase it by a close search of the bodies of the Saracens. The city of Jerusalem soon presented a new spectacle. In the course of a few days only, it had changed its inhabitants, laws, and religion. Before the last assault, it had been agreed, according to the custom of the Crusaders in their conquests, that every warrior should remain master and possessor of the house or edifice in which he should present himself first. A cross, a buckler, or any other mark placed upon a door was, for every one of the conquerors, a good title of possession. This right of property was respected by every soldier, however greedy, of plunder, and the greatest order soon reigned in a city but recently given up to all the horrors of war. The victory enriched the greater part of the Crusaders. The conquerors shared the provisions and the riches they had found, and such as had not been fortunate in the pillage had no cause to complain of their companions. A part of the treasures was employed in assisting the poor, in supporting orphans, and in decorating the altars they had freed from the Mussulmans. Tancred had his share all the wealth found in the Mosque of Omar. Among these riches were 20 candelabra of gold, 120 of silver, a large lamp, 188, and many other ornaments of the same metals. This booty was so considerable that it would have been enough, say the historians, to load 6 chariots, and employed Tancred 2 days in removing it from the mosque. The Italian hero gave up a portion of this to his soldiers and another to Godfrey, to whose service he had attached himself. He distributed abundance of alms, and placed 50 gold marks in the hands of the Latin clergy for the re-establishment and the decoration of the churches. But the Crusaders soon turned their eyes from the treasures which victory had bestowed upon them to admire conquest much more precious in their estimation. This was the true cross, which had been borne away from Jerusalem by Khosroes and brought back again by Heraclius. The Christians shut up in the city had concealed it from the Saracens during the siege. The sight of it excited the most lively emotions in the pilgrims. Of the scene, says an old chronicle, the Christians were as much delighted as if they had seen the body of Christ hung thereupon. It was borne in triumph through the streets of Jerusalem, and then replaced in the Church of the Resurrection. 10 days after their victory, the Crusaders employed themselves in restoring the throne of David and Solomon, and in placing upon it a leader who might preserve and maintain a conquest that the Christians had made at the expense of so much blood. The Council of the Princes, being assembled, one of the leaders' history means accounted, Flanders, arose in the midst of them, and spoke in these terms, 189, brothers and companions. We are met to treat of an affair of the greatest importance. Never did we stand in greater need of the counsels, of wisdom and the inspirations of heaven. In ordinary times it is desirable that authority should be in the hands of the most able. With how much greater reason then ought we to seek for the man most worthy to govern this kingdom, still in a great measure in the power of the barbarians. Already we are told that the Egyptians threaten this city, for which we are about to choose a master. The greater part of the Christian warriors are impatient to return to their country, and to abandon to others the care of defending their conquests. The new people then who are going to inhabit this land will have in their neighborhood no other Christian nations to assist them in their need, or console them in their distresses. Their enemies are near them, their allies are beyond the seas, The king we shall give them over there. Only support amidst the perils which will surround them. Even who is called upon to govern this country must have all the qualities necessary to maintain his position with glory. He must unite with them bravery natural to the friends, temperance, good faith, and humanity. For you know by such virtues great principalities are acquired and kept as well as by arms. Let us not forget, brothers and companions, that our object today is not so much to elect a king for Jerusalem, as to bestow upon it a faithful guardian. He whom we shall choose as leader must be as a father to all those who have quitted their country and their families for the service of Jesus Christ and the defense of the holy places. He must make virtue flourish in this land where God himself has given the model of it. He must win the infidels to the Christian religion, accustom them to our manners, and teach them to bless our laws. If you elect one who is not worthy, you will destroy your own work, and will bring ruin on the Christian name in this country. I have no need to recall to your mind the exploits or the labors which have placed us in possession of this territory. I will now remind you of the dearest wishes of our brothers who have remained in the West. What would be their sorrow? What would be ours if, on our return to Europe, we should hear that the Papagov has been neglected and betrayed, or religion abolished in these places where we have restored its altars? Many would then not fail to attribute to fortune, and not to virtue, the great things we have done, whilst the evils which this kingdom would undergo would pass in the eyes of men as the fruit of our imprudence. Do not believe, however, brothers and companions, that I speak thus, because I am ambitious of royalty, and that I am seeking the fated word, suffrages. No, I have not sufficient presumption to aspire to such an honor. I take heaven and men to witness that even if you should offer me the crown, I would not accept it, being resolved to return to my own country. That which I have said to you is but for the good and glory of all. For the rest, I supplicate you to receive this advice as I give it to you, with affection, frankness, and loyalty, and elect for king him who by his virtues shall be most capable of preserving and extending this kingdom, to which are attached both the honor of your arms and the cause of Jesus Christ. Scarcely had the Count of Flanders ceased speaking, than all the other leaders gave him the warmest praise for his prudence and good feelings. Most of them even thought of offering him the honor he had declined, for he who in such circumstances refuses a crown always appears to be the most worthy of it. But Robert had expressed himself with frankness and good faith. He longed to return to Europe, and was satisfied with the honor of bearing the title of the son of St. George, which his exploits in the Holy War had obtained for him. Among the leaders who could be called upon to reign over Jerusalem, we must place in the first rank Godfrey, Raymond, the Duke of Normandy, and Tancred. The only object of Tancred was glory in arms, and he placed the title of knight far above that of king. The Duke of Normandy, likewise, had evinced more bravery than ambition. After having disdained the kingdom of England, he was not likely to be anxious to gain that of Jerusalem. If we may believe an English historian, 190, he might have obtained the suffrages of his companions. But he refused the throne of David from indolence, which so irritated God against him, says the same author, that nothing afterwards prospered with him during the remainder of his life. The Count of Toulouse had taken an oath never to return to Europe, but his companions dreaded his obstinate and ambitious character. And, although several authors have said that he refused to ascend the throne on account of his great age, everything leads us to believe that the Christians feared to have him for king. The opinions of the leaders and the army were various and uncertain. The clergy insisted that a patriarch should be named before they elected a king. The princes were not at all agreed among themselves, and of the body of the Crusaders, some would have wished to choose him whom they had followed through the Holy War, whilst others, like the Provincials, who had no attachment for the Count of St. Gilles, and were not desirous of remaining in Asia, gave all their efforts to keep the crown of Jerusalem from the prince under whose colors they served. To terminate the debate, it was decided that the choice should be made by a special council of 10 of the most highly respected men of the army. prayers, fasts, and alms were commanded in order to propitiate heaven to guide them in the nomination they were about to make. They were called upon to choose the king swore, in the presence of the whole Christian army, not to listen to any interest or any private affection, but to decree the crown to wisdom and virtue. These electors, whose names history has not preserved, gave the utmost attention to ascertain the opinion of the army upon the merits of each of the leaders. William of Tyre relates that they went so far as even to interrogate the familiar associates and servants of all who had any pretensions to the crown, and that they made them take an oath to reveal all they knew of the manners, characters, and secret propensities of their masters. The servants of Godfrey of Bouillon gave the most striking evidence of his mildness and humanity, but above all, of his exemplary devotion. To add to this honorable testimony, the exploits of the Duke of Lorraine during the Holy War were dwelt upon. They remembered that at the siege of Nice he had killed the most redoubtable of the Saracens, that he had split from shoulder to haunch a giant on the bridge of Antioch, and that in ancient battle he had exposed his life to save that of a soldier who was overpowered by their. Many other feats of bravery were related of him, which in the minds of the Crusaders placed him above all the other competitors. 191. Godfrey was the leader decidedly in possession of the suffrages of the majority of the army and the people, and that he might not want anything in the expression of their wishes for success. Revelations were announced that God himself declared in his favor. Many years before the crusade, says Albert Dykes, a soldier named Heveronda Kinsfeller had fallen asleep in a forest, and, being invading a dream to the summit of Sinai, he had seen Godfrey, covered with glory, and accompanied by 2 celestial messengers, who announced to him that God had chosen him, as he had done Moses, to be the conductor and chief of his people. A clerk, Geiselbert, a canon of St. Mary of Aix-la-Chapelle, related a vision not less miraculous. The Duke of Lorraine had appeared to him seated upon the throne even of the sun. The birds of heaven from all climates and all points of the horizon flew around him in numberless troops. The recital of this apparition was accompanied by many other circumstances which we have not space to repeat. But the Crusaders, who were much struck with them, did not fail to see in the throne of the Sun a faithful image of that of Jerusalem, and in the birds of heaven the multitude of pilgrims who would come from all countries to do honor to the glorious reign of Godfrey. 192. These visions, which are despised in an enlightened age, had great power over the Christian army, and did not contribute less than the personal merit of the Prince of Bouillon to draw upon him the attention of all. In this disposition of the general mind, the Crusaders looked with impatience for the decision of the council which was to give the king to Jerusalem. At length the electors, after mature deliberations and an anxious inquiry for all necessary information, proclaimed the name of Godfrey.
Stubbsy.
This nomination caused the most lively joy throughout the Christian army, and was considered as an inspiration of heaven. By the authority given to him, Godfrey became the depositary of the dearest interests of the Crusaders. Everyone among them had in some sort confided his own glory to him by leaving him the care of watching over and guiding their conquests. They conducted him in triumph to the church of the Holy Sepulchre, where he took the oath to respect the laws of honor and justice. He refused the diadem and the insignia of royalty, saying that he would never accept a crown of gold in a city in which the Savior of the world had been crowned with thorns. He contented himself with the modest title of Defender and Baron of the Holy Sepulchre. It has been pretended that in this he only acted in obedience to the insinuations of the clergy, who were afraid of seeing God seated upon the throne over which the Spirit of Christ ought to reign. However this may be, Godfrey richly merited by virtue the title of king which history has given him, and which was far more due to him than the name of kingdom was to the feeble states he had to govern. As the war had the triumph of religion for its object, the clergy employed themselves in naming bishops, consecrating churches, and sending pastors to all the cities that had submitted to the power of the Christians. Piety and disinterestedness ought to have presided in the choice of the ministers of Christ. But since the death of the virtuous Ademar, the greater part of the Latin ecclesiastics, no longer restrained by his example, had forgotten the humility and simplicity of their profession. If William of Tyre may be believed, address and intrigue openly obtained the suffrages, and the spirit of the religion which had just given Jerusalem a good king, could not succeed in bestowing upon the prelates respectable either for their wisdom or their virtues. The clergy, who had ventured to disturb the election of the king by their intrigues, carried their pretensions as high as the sovereignty of the city, and claimed with arrogance the greatest part in the division of the booty won from the infidels. 193, the Greek priests, in spite of their rights, were sacrificed to the ambition of the Roman clergy, as they had been in the city of Antioch. The chaplain of the Duke of Normandy caused himself to be proposed as Patriarch of Jerusalem, in the place of Simeon, who had summoned the warriors from the west. Simeon was still in the Isle of Cyprus, from whence he had continually sent provisions to the Crusaders during the siege. He died at the moment in which the Latin ecclesiastics were quarreling for his spoils, and his death came very opportunely to excuse their injustice and ingratitude. Arnold, whose morals were more than suspected, and whose conduct has merited the censure of the gravest historians, was nominated pastor of the Church of Jerusalem. In the meanwhile, fame had proclaimed the conquest of the Holy City throughout all the neighboring countries. In all the churches founded by the Crusaders in their passage, thanks were offered up to God for a victory which must necessarily cause the triumph of the worship and the laws of Christ in the East. The Christians of Antioch, Edessa, and Tarsus, with those who inhabited Cilicia, Cappadocia, Syria, and Mesopotamia, came in crowds to Jerusalem, some for the purpose of fixing their abode there, others to visit the holy places. Whilst the faithful were rejoicing over their conquest, the Mussulmans gave themselves up to despair. The few who had escaped from the swords of the Crusaders spread consternation wherever they went. The historians Abu Muhammad, El-Masin, and Abu al-Fayda have described the desolation which reigned at Baghdad. Zimedin, Kadhiv, Damascus, tore out his own beard in the presence of the Caliph. The whole divan shed tears whilst listening to the recital of the misfortunes of Jerusalem. Fasts and prayers were ordered to mitigate the anger of heaven. The imams and poets deplored in pathetic verses and discourses the fate of the Mussulmans who had become slaves of the Christians. What blood, said they, has not flowed? What disasters 194 have not befallen the true believers? Women have been obliged to fly, concealing their faces. Children have fallen under the swords of the conquerors. And there remains no other asylum for our brothers, so lately masters of Syria, but the backs of their camels, or the entrails of the vultures. The Caliph of Baghdad, deprived of his authority, had nothing to offer but his prayers and tears for the cause of the Mussulmans. The victories of the Christians had inflicted a mortal blow upon the dynasty of the Seleucids. The Sultan of Persia, retired to the extremity of Khorasan, was occupied in appeasing civil wars, and scarcely gave a thought to the emirs of Syria, who had shaken off his authority and shared his spoils amongst them. The greater part of the emirs were quarreling among themselves for the cities and provinces, threatened by the warriors of the west. The discords which accompany the fall of empires had everywhere sown trouble and division among the infidels. But such was their grief when they learned the conquest of Jerusalem by the Christians, that they united in weeping together over the outrages committed upon the religion of Muhammad. The Turks of Syria and the inhabitants of Damascus and Baghdad placed their last hope in the Caliph of Cairo, whom they had so long considered an enemy to the Prophet, and came in crowds to join the Egyptian army which was advancing towards Ascalon. At Jerusalem they soon learned that this army had reached Gaza, in the ancient country of the Philistines. Godfrey immediately caused his brother Eustace and Tancred, who had quitted the city to go and take possession of Naples, to be informed of this. He pressed the other leaders of the crusade to unite with him and march to meet the Saracens. The Duke of Normandy at first refused to follow him, alleging that his vow was accomplished. And the Count of Toulouse, who had been forced to give up to the king the fortress of David, which he pretended belonged to him by right of conquest, rejected with hotness the prayers of Godfrey, and treated the news of the approach of the Saracens as a fable. The refusal of the Duke of Normandy and Raymond did not prevent Godfrey from commencing his march, followed by Tancred, the Count of Flanders, and several other leaders. They learned on the route that the Emir, Afdhal, the same that had taken Jerusalem from the Turks, commanded the army of the infidels. This general had under his standard an almost countless multitude of Mussulmans from the banks of the Tigris and the Nile, the shores of the Red Sea, and the extremities of Ethiopia. A fleet had sailed from the ports of Alexandria and Damietta, laden with all sorts of provisions and the machines necessary
I'm moving
for the siege
slow,
of
man.
Jerusalem.
Stayed up too
AFDHL
late.
had taken a solemn oath before the Caliph to annihilate forever the power of the Crusaders in Asia and to entirely destroy Calvary, the tomb of Christ, and all the monuments revered by the Christians. The march and the intentions of AFDHL soon conveyed terror to Jerusalem. Raymond and the Duke of Normandy were again pressed to join the Christian army. Women, old men, and priests with tears conjured the two princes to have pity on the holy city they had delivered. They represented to them the fatal consequences of their inaction, which rendered all the leaders of the Crusaders useless and closed forever the doors of the East against opens. The voices of all the nations of the West, they told them, would be raised against them, and the blood of the Christians would be on their hands. At last Robert and Raymond allowed themselves to be prevailed upon, and marched with their troops to join Godfrey. The new patriarch desired to follow them, bearing with him the wood of the true cross, the sight of which, like that of the Holy Lands, would redouble the enthusiasm and the bravery of the Crusaders. All the Christians in a condition to bear arms quitted Jerusalem to go and fight the Mussulmans. There only remained in the holy city the women, the sick, and a part of the clergy, who, having Peter the Hermit at their head, addressed night and day prayers to heaven to obtain the triumph of the defenders of the holy places, and the last defeat of the enemies of Christ. The Christian army, which had at first assembled at Ramla, advanced across Sandy Entry and encamped on the banks of the Torrent of Sorx, in the plain of Sophia, or Surfend, situated between Jaffa and Ascalon. The day after the Christians arrived on this plain, they perceived at a distance, towards 7 o'clock in the evening, a vast multitude, which they took for the army of the enemy. 200 horsemen, who were sent out to reconnoiter, soon returned, however, with the agreeable intelligence that the multitude they had taken for the Egyptian army was nothing but a drove of oxen and camels. So rich a booty at first awakened the avidity of the soldiers, but the prudent Godfrey, who saw nothing in this circumstance but a stratagem of the enemy to throw the Christian army in disorder, forbade his soldiers to leave their ranks. The other leaders, after his example, endeavored to restrain the men under their command, and all remained firm beneath their standards. The Crusaders learned from some prisoners they had made that the enemy were encamped at 3 leagues from them, and that they were preparing to come and attack the Christian army. Upon receiving this advice, the leaders made their dispositions to receive the infidels. The army was drawn up in 9 divisions and formed a sort of square battalion, so as to be able at need to face the enemy at all points. The Crusaders passed the night under arms. On the following morning, it was the eve of the Assumption. The herald announced by sound of trumpet that they were about to give battle to the infidels. At break of day, the Crusaders received the benediction of the Patriarch of Jerusalem. The wood of the true cross was carried through the ranks and shown to the soldiers as a certain pledge of victory. The leaders then gave the signal. All the ensigns were unfurled, and the army marched to meet the Saracens. The nearer the Christians approached the army of Egypt, the more were they filled with confidence and hope. Their drums, cymbals, hymns, and war songs animated them to the fight. They marched towards the enemy, says Albert Dykes, as to a joyous feast. an emir of Palestine, who followed the army as an auxiliary, could not sufficiently admire, if we may believe historians, this joy of the soldiers of the cross at the approach of danger. He came to express his surprise to the king of Jerusalem, and swore before him to embrace a religion which could give so much strength and bravery to its defenders. The Christians soon arrived in the plain of Ascalon. This immense plain is bounded on the east and south by mountains, and extends on the west to the sea. On the coast was situated the city of Ascalon, over which the Mussulman standards floated. At the extremity of the plain the army of Egypt was drawn up, with the sea and the mountains behind it. The Crusaders advanced in 2 lines. The Count of Toulouse commanded the right wing. The 2 Roberts and Tancred were placed at the left. Godfrey commanded a body of reserve, which was at the same time to keep the garrison of Ascalon in check and fight with the army of Egypt. Whilst the Christian army was thus marching in battle array, the drove of oxen and camels that they had met on the route came to their rear, and followed all their movements. The confused noise of these animals, mingled with the sound of the drums and trumpets, and a cloud of dust which arose under their steps, caused them to be taken for squadrons of course, and the Mussulmans were persuaded that the Christian army was more numerous than their own. They were drawn up in 2 lines, as the Crusaders were. The Turks from Syria and Baghdad were on the right, the Moors and Egyptians on the left. The Emir of Dajjal occupied the center with the main body of the Egyptian forces. This army covered an immense space, and, says Falker de Chartres, like a stag who projects his branching horns, it extended its wings to envelop the Christians. But a sudden terror rendered it motionless. In vain the Emir endeavored to rouse the courage of his soldiers. They fancied that millions of crusaders had arrived from the west. They forgot both their oaths and their threats, and only remembered the fate of the Mussulmans immolated after the conquest of Jerusalem. Before engaging, all the crusaders, fully armed, fell on their knees to implore the protection of heaven. And rising full of ardor and hope, marched against the Saracens. If the most truthful historians are to be believed, they had not more than 15,000 foot and 5,000 horse. When they had arrived within bow shot, the foot soldiers made several discharges of javelins. At the same time, the cavalry, increasing their speed, precipitated themselves upon the enemy's ranks. At this first charge the Duke of Normandy, the Count of Flanders, and Tancred broke through the center of the Egyptians. Duke Robert, followed by his bravest knights, penetrated to the place where Dajjal fought, and got possession of the great standard of the infidels. The foot soldiers followed the horse into the melee, and cast away their bows and javelins to make use of sword and lance, arms much more terrible to the Mussulmans. On all sides the Saracens
I'm gonna have
were
to
thrown
stop
into
the stream. I'm
disorder.
sorry.
Towards the end of the battle, Godfrey had
did
to
stay up too
contend
late
with
last
the
night.
troop
I
of
have to go back to
Ethiopians,
sleep for
who
a
bent
while.
one knee to the ground to launch their
But anyway,
javelins,
it was
and
fun.
then,
Great hearing
springing
from
up,
Barry. Barry, I
rushed
always
on the
appreciate the
Crusaders
call.
with long flails armed with balls of iron.
Good buddy.
This
Let's play
redoubtable
some
battalion
Macarena.
could not
Next time
alone
we get a chance.
resist the lances of
Until
the
then, it's not gonna be
Christians,
them.
and were soon dispersed.
See you next time.